these were my tapes that we gave to them. And they basically then say that's not enough. I don't think we would have had to give it.
It's Michael Popok, Legal AF. Well, that was fast. Donald Trump's already responded in a right-wing MAGA podcast and given more great evidence for Jack Smith to use against him in the Mar-a-Lago case. He's already responded to the superseding indictment and the charge that he, in a conspiracy that he led with at least 3 other people, 2 of which are now indicted, tried to delete the video surveillance camera footage, tried to delete the server. And there's a name for that in prosecutor land. That's called evidence of consciousness of guilt. It is the platinum standard. It is the thing that every prosecutor looks for, sometimes in vain, in a case to use as evidence against the defendant. And what it means is what it sounds like. It's consciousness of guilt. You don't do certain acts and activities if you're innocent. An innocent man doesn't do certain things, right? If you're not guilty of murder, you don't buy rope and lie and a .38 caliber weapon and a shovel and map out ways to bury a body. You don't do that if you're not guilty. You do it if you're guilty of the murder that you've been charged with. Same thing here. For Donald Trump, there's already evidence of consciousness of guilt at Mar-a-Lago. The instructing Walt Nauta to move boxes, 67 of them, in and out of the storage room before and after his own lawyer, Evan Corcoran, appeared to review them for the government to produce them. His conversations about let's not produce any of them. Why don't we ignore the subpoena or the requests? His lying to his own attorneys, Donald Trump, Evan Corcoran, and Christina Bobb, letting them sign an affidavit that they'd done a diligent search of all the rooms, and 34 pages is all they found of top secret and classified documents when there were hundreds and thousands behind other doors and behind locked drawers. These are all badges of consciousness of guilt. But the ultimate one, destruction of evidence. And that's why Jack Smith went back with his team to the grand jury to get an amended indictment, because that's what you got to do, a superseding indictment, and threw in the Iranian war document for good measure. Again, playing cat and mouse with Donald Trump in a masterstroke. Jack Smith knew he had the Iranian war document in his hands, but he asked and subpoenaed and the lawyers for Donald Trump to turn it over. And they had to double down on Donald Trump's public BS, which is, I wasn't talking about any one particular document. I didn't have any document. I had a pile of documents. I had press clippings. I had a whole bunch of other stuff. I had building plans for a project I'm developing. I wasn't doing anything in particular. That's completely against the weight of the evidence, because we know that Jack Smith has spoken to every other person in the Bedminster meeting in which they said he unfurled an Iranian war document of the U.S. And so they already had it, but they let Donald Trump go on television and in recordings and in interviews and claim that it didn't exist and he wasn't referring to anything. And then while he did that, Jack Smith said, okay, well, we let him hang himself long enough. Bring in the witnesses to the room. They said, is this the Iranian war document? And they said, yes, it is, under penalty of perjury and threat of going to jail. And then they indicted in the superseding indictment Donald Trump for lying about the Iranian war document. And we're seeing it all over again, right? There has to be a team for Jack Smith. I don't know the name of that team, but we'll find out about it when somebody writes a memoir. All they do, and there's probably a dozen people, is search the hinterlands and the corners, dark recesses of the internet, looking for right-wing MAGA media and his interviews to hang him with his own words, because they're going to do it again based on an interview that Donald Trump gave just today about the destruction of the surveillance video count in the superseding indictment and the words that are going to be used there. Let me first give you the rundown from the indictment of the facts, so because we don't blow smoke or sunshine here on the MeidasTouch Network or Legal AF, and you can hold on to those and hold on to them for dear life as you hear the BS that comes spouting out of Donald Trump in this 1-minute interview with John Fredericks, whoever that is, a right-wing MAGA person that likes to have people like the former guy on. Let's just do the timeline, because the timeline also indicates the consciousness of guilt. You see what the pattern is here on my hot take? You see what the theme is? Okay. Let's start with June the 22nd, 2022. Trump is informed by Jack Smith that the grand jury is going to be subpoenaing the security cameras and security footage. Okay. It's evidence. The Department of Justice did a search of Mar-a-Lago, and they got testimony from maintenance workers and housekeepers and cooks about the security cameras. They had already interviewed Matt Calamari and Matt Calamari Jr. I'm always hungry when I talk about those two guys. Those are the COO for the Trump Organization, and his son used to be head of security. About surveillance cameras. Talk to me about them. Where are they located? How do they record? How many minutes or how many hours of footage stays before they're overwritten? Stuff like that. So the Department of Justice already knew that. And so they issued a subpoena on the 22nd of June. And that led to a conversation within hours, which I will assure you is the longest conversation between a former president and a maintenance worker in the history of America. 24-minute phone call between Donald Trump and now his co-defendant in the superseding indictment, Carlos de Oliveira, head of maintenance, former valet parker. 24 minutes. I wonder what they talked about a day after the subpoena was issued. Now, let me also clear up something as the terminology. I'm not talking about the search warrant. The Department of Justice continued to believe, at least through June or July, that they could get the documents through negotiation with Donald Trump and or using a search warrant, a subpoena, and not go to the level of a search warrant, which was extraordinary. Guys wearing FBI, ladies and gentlemen wearing FBI jackets knocking on the door. That happened in August. I'm talking about June of last summer. And by June, they get the notice on the 22nd. By the 23rd, Donald Trump has a 24-minute phone call with Carlos. He then Donald Trump reroutes Walt Nauta, also co-defendant, valet, butler, body man, to come back. Has Walt Nauta communicate during this period with Carlos de Oliveira and with a new person that's not named in the superseding indictment, but is the cooperating witness. That's the other signal Jack Smith said. I got an insider cooperating with me, Donald Trump, and his name is Yuscil Tavares, and he was your IT director. And he got into a conversation led by Carlos, your maintenance worker, and Walt Nauta, in which they talked about deleting the server at your request. And that happened on the 27th of June, 4.5 days after the subpoena notice was given. And that is classic organized crime talk. That's what this, and remember, Jack Smith played it for the grand jury. He's going to play it in trial for a jury. And you're going to hear the conversations that I'm sure partially were recorded and live testimony from Yuscil about the conversation where the boss wants the server deleted. That's Walt Nauta and Carlos talking to Yuscil. And the boss is obviously Donald Trump. There's only one boss at Mar-a-Lago. And so that's going to come out. And the video footage that the Department of Justice does have is going to be played, which is based on what's listed in the indictment, images, video, moving pictures of Carlos and Walt Nauta with flashlights in the middle of the night going to where the server room is and looking for the cameras. Okay? That's going to look great in front of a jury. Even if there's a Trumper in the jury, I don't know how he's going to overcome the sheer volume of uncontradicted evidence that's going to be against him, right? And so this is what's going to play out. We can only anticipate the trial presentation because you don't have to put everything in your indictment, but yet Jack Smith is putting in a number of messages, right, to Donald Trump and his team. And the messaging of this timing, and you just saw the timing I laid out, 622 down to 627 of last year, all events that show consciousness of guilt by Donald Trump and the others. You don't say, shh, you don't do it in the dark. You don't talk about deleting servers if you got nothing to hide, right? Donald Trump, however, can't leave well enough alone, and he's got to go on a podcast that he hoped nobody would listen to, but MeidasTouch Network and I found it. And here it is. Here is him saying in classic traitorous Scrooge McDuck fashion, mine, 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 mine. The videos were mine. I didn't have to turn them over. We turned them over, but they wanted more. He doesn't address the deletion, you'll note when you hear the video, the audio. Jack Smith's a crackhead. He's out of control. His typical attack on Jack Smith. And I don't know why I'm being indicted. I don't know the evidence against me. And I don't know any of the witnesses against me. And the two employees that they're trying to testify against me, they're very fine people. Right, they're very fine people that you are currently paying for their lawyers. In fact, you reached out to make sure that Carlos de Oliveira was on your side and was loyal to you, and you had Susan Wiles, and this is in the indictment, who's part of your presidential election campaign, on a Signal chat, a platform chat, confirm that Carlos was with you, and then let it be known that you were going to pay for his lawyer. Well, what does he need a lawyer for in June before the search warrant if you don't have anything to hide? Answer that. Don't do it to me. Do it to the jury one day. But you won't have an answer for it. We'll just leave it at that. Let's roll the audio interview. John Fredericks interviewing Donald Trump, and then you come back.
But it's always unpleasant when you have to go in and tell your wife that, by the way, tomorrow sometime I'm going to be indicted. And she says, for what? I say, I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. Normally you know exactly. But these people, these are thugs. Jack Smith I call him deranged Jack Smith. He's a prosecutor who's been overturned unanimously in the Supreme Court. Vicious tactics. They went after two fine employees yesterday, fine people. And I don't think they think that the tapes were even changed. These were my tapes that we gave to them. And they basically then say that's not enough. I don't think we would have had to give it. I'm not sure that we would have even had to give it. These were security tapes. We handed them over to them. I doubt we would have, if we wanted to fight that, I doubt we would have had to give it. But regardless, we gave it. Now, I'm not sure I'm not even sure what they're saying. They're trying to intimidate people so that people go out and make up lies about me because I did nothing wrong. They're trying to, and I come under the Presidential Records Act, which is civil. It's not even criminal. But they're trying to intimidate people, and so they have to lie to get out of a problem. But these are two wonderful employees. They've been with me for a long time, and they're great people. And they want to destroy their lives.
Okay, so it's classic Donald Trump. They're mine. That's not a defense in criminal law. That's actually the opposite. We heard this before. All the documents are mine. All Mar-a-Lago is mine. They're my presidential records and the like. We've also heard him say, he loves talking about this ridiculous case that's not applicable and doesn't help him, called the Sox case involving Bill Clinton. We hear that a lot. Sox, not the first cat, who was also named Sox, but Bill Clinton had recordings in a sock drawer that he was going to use on cassettes, and those under 30 can ask their parents. They were going to use for a book. And Tom Fitton, that guy, the guy that wears shirts that are too tight and is not a lawyer and has a thing called Judicial Watch, whatever that means. And so he filed a suit to try to get these audio tapes because they were presidential records. And the federal court said, they're not presidential records. They're private. You're not getting them. And Donald Trump says, see, there's a case involving Bill Clinton and dirty socks and some cassettes. And that gave me the permission to steal and hide national defense information, nuclear secrets, Iranian war documents, and other things, because it's all the same. I mean, again, these are things that will never fly in a courtroom, and yet Donald Trump continues to cling to. Just like he has this fictitious conversation in the audio you heard between him and Melania. Hey, I'm getting indicted today. About what? I have no idea. Really? First of all, there's been a ton of documents produced by the federal government to Donald Trump when he got indicted for Mar-a-Lago. They literally backed up a tractor trailer. Well, not literally. And dumped it off wherever he wanted it. They gave him 56 terabytes of information. And they're still delivering more and more. You cannot have lived through the Jan 6 committee's presentation and their final report last December. All of the interviews that have been reported on mainstream media and here on the MeidasTouch network and shows like Legal AF that I co-anchor, you cannot have done or read the news wherever you get your news from and not know at least the charges that are against you being brought by Jack Smith and the witnesses, including your own former attorneys and current attorneys who are testifying against you, and the evidence. You just can't. And the law doesn't allow you to maintain that ridiculous posture. It doesn't. It's called willful blindness, and it's not allowed. And you bring in evidence to show that you knew or should have known, that a reasonable person in your position would have known. But you hear him on the audio, which Jack Smith, will see as another gift, another attempt to attack him, another attempt to, try to do a terrible job at defending why he was trying to delete his own tapes, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And again, this was the timing of the superseding indictment yesterday was an FU from Jack Smith. Meets in the morning with the lawyers who try to talk him out of indicting their client again federally. He nods with the Subway sandwich and coffee in hand, and then gives the green light to file the superseding indictment in Miami, showing that their client is a liar and destroyed evidence, and signaling that he has the ultimate insider who's testifying against Donald Trump, leaving Donald Trump to suck wind and then try to interfere and witness tamper by saying that those employees, which I assume he means Carlos de Oliveira and maybe Yuscil Taveras and Walt Nauta, are all good people, and try to get them all attorneys, which is also, again, in a circular scheme here, part of the indictment narrative. So it's not checkmate yet, Jack Smith, until we have convictions, but it's check. And we're going to continue to follow it on the MeidasTouch network. That's where I do these YouTube hot takes. You do that. You're watching me here. And I only do it here at the intersection of law and politics. We pull it all together with two other co-anchors and friends of mine, Ben Mycelis, Karen Friedman-Agnifilo. We do a long format show on Wednesdays and Saturdays. We're probably going to have to add another day. I'll have to talk to the suits about that. But right now, Wednesday nights and Saturday nights, if you want to watch us on YouTube, some people do, you can do it on the MeidasTouch YouTube channel. All you got to do is free subscribe. If you want to listen to it, analog, old school like me, you then pull it on a podcast platform wherever you get your podcasts from. We're there too. I do hot takes like this about every hour. No, I'm sorry, typo. About every day, maybe more, depending upon developments. If you like the content of what I provide, go over to the MeidasTouch YouTube channel, slide over to playlists, go down to Michael Popok, and everything is collected there for you in one neat package. You can also follow me on all things social media at MS Popok. This is Michael Popok, Legal AF reporting.
Hey, Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram at MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.